Could the U.S. be on the verge of nuclear war? Recently, the head of the U.S. Strategic Command warned that a nuclear war between the United States and China-Russia is possible, if not imminent. The United States should take advanced actions to prevent the CCP and Russia from using newly acquired strategic arms. According to the Washington Times, United States Navy Admiral Charles Richard published a paper in the U.S. Naval Institute Journal stating that there is a real possibility that a regional crisis with Russia or China could escalate quickly to a conflict involving nuclear weapons if they perceived a conventional loss would threaten the regime or state. Richard urged that the Pentagon must consider real possible nuclear war as the major hypothesis. In recent years, China and Russia invested in nuclear weapons and strategic capability and executed strategic deployments in U.S. allies intending to restrict U.S. operations. This will be the first time in history that the United States has to face two nuclear-armed competitors, Richard told the Washington Times. Richard noted that the CCP has become the concern for the U.S. military because of its nuclear constructions. It acts aggressively to challenge democratic values and shape the global economic order to its benefit, and continues to invest significant resources in hypersonic and advanced missile systems, as well as to expand its space and counter-space capabilities. As a result, CCP should not be taken as a lesser-included case. In addition, the CCP is deploying a variety of weapon systems on disputed islands in the South China Sea to improve the combat readiness of its forces. The CCP's nuclear weapons stockpile is expected to increase by a factor of 1 or even 3 to 4 over the next decade. Richard also warned that the U.S. must pay more attention to the CCP's continuous use of strategic deception in recent years in the attempt to break its no first use policy. David Schoen, President Trump will not attend the trial to testify. On Tuesday, February 4, 2021, Trump lawyer David Schoen dismissed a request from the House Democratic impeachment manager Jamie Raskin that called on President Trump to testify at his second impeachment trial scheduled to start the week of February 8th.
The former president shouldn't even respond to this, shouldn't appear at all. I think that the former president believes that this process is ongoing. He understands the appearance to the American public of the process. He believes in the sanctity of the Constitution of the United States. He believes firmly and correctly the Constitution is being violated here.
In his letter to President Trump, Raskin also wrote, "If you decline this invitation, we reserve any and all rights, including the right to establish at trial that your refusal to testify supports a strong adverse inference regarding your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021. In response to the letter, Schoen claimed Raskin was attempting a public relations stunt by sending the letter to the former president.
The reason we're here is because of their constant calls for impeach, impeach, impeach from the first day, and this was the one power they had. Rush to judgment in the House, hear no evidence, have no witnesses, simply impeach because they could. And you'll hear Nancy Pelosi has said so earlier on. What can we do about the president? We can impeach him every day if we want.
There is no such thing as negative inference in this unconstitutional proceeding," he added. "Your letter only confirms what is known to everyone. You cannot prove your allegations against the 45th President of the United States, who is now a private citizen."
If you go to the language of the Constitution, it's clear that, and everyone knows, the impeachment proceeding is intended for the removal of office of a sitting officer. But they held the articles until he was no longer president. Trial didn't begin. There's absolutely no jurisdiction in the Senate to try former President Trump than there is any other citizen in the country. And I would suggest to you that if you think any citizen in the country ought to be hauled off the street and brought before the Senate for a trial, by the way, lacking in all due process.
In suggesting that Trump will not attend the trial to testify, Schoen argued that Raskin's use of our Constitution to bring a purported impeachment proceeding is much too serious to try to play these games. The Democratic-controlled House voted in January to impeach Trump on a single article of impeachment, claiming he incited an insurrection on January 6th. Trump's lawyers have indicated that they will argue that his act of speaking to a crowd on January 6th was protected under the First Amendment.
Everyone in the country now knows that the evidence is developing that what happened at the Capitol was pre-planned. More and more evidence comes out every day. They want to rush this thing to trial before the evidence really comes out. That's not the American way. What's happening here is clearly being run by one party who has chosen party over country. And that's just wrong. This is simply the partisan political weaponization of the impeachment process, contrary to the Constitution.
Jason Miller, who is part of Trump's team, told Newsmax on Thursday, February 4th,
his speech on the 6th, where he talked about being peaceful, he talked about cheering on the legislators on Capitol Hill.
Yep.
And Rob, you would have to be so thick in the head to have watched President Trump over the last 5 years and not realize that he's the most pro-law and order president ever, and that he deplores any sort of mob violence, especially after this summer. None of his supporters would ever do this. He would never suggest anything of the sort.
Pompeo. CCP will use artificial intelligence to harm U.S. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in an interview aired on February 4th that the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, will use artificial intelligence to comb through troves of personal data on U.S. citizens recovered from Chinese technology and apps and use the intelligence as a weapon to strong-arm the United States. Pompeo told Fox News' Maria Bartiromo,
They will use that information. They will use artificial intelligence to gather it up, and then they will turn around and tell us that if we don't act in a way that's consistent with what the Chinese Communist Party wants, they will impose real costs on the United States.
Pompeo said,
The flip side is these technologies that infiltrate the United States and infiltrate Europe are things that our kids use, right? That we use, that are in our cars, that are in our television sets, that are in our handsets and phones. This information, also American information, whether it's our personal information about where we live and who we hang out with, or information about our medical conditions and our DNA, that information goes back to the Chinese national security state.
Pompeo added that he warned U.S. allies about the dangers posed by the CCP. The regime, he said, has consistently broken its promises over the past 2 decades and should be dealt with under the motto, distrust but verify. Pompeo has been warning that the CCP has already infiltrated the United States and is working to influence the levers of power from the local level on up to Washington.